I am so ashamed. Not! What's going on, people? Crazy stuff happening. Hey, if you want to really expand or maximize your hustler mindset, check out the Hustler Mindset Project. Links below. First one of many. Let's really jump into it. When I said I was ashamed, I'm not, but could possibly be. I got this unit. Big ass unit in Cobb County. Big unit. And I almost didn't get it. And when I say no, I bought the unit cheap. Really cheap. But it was new, a little overwhelmed. And I bought the unit, put a lock on it, and then go back for a month. So I get a call from the storage facility, mom and pop storage facility. Hey, you bought this unit and we need for you to come get it or rent it. What you gonna do, mister? And that's just how she said it. And I felt so ashamed. I was like, I'm gonna rent it. So I went up there and she had that teacher look. I don't know if you've ever been like in trouble with a teacher and you go in there and they've got that look and you just feel like that small. It was that kind of moment because I was wrong. I was guilty and I couldn't go. There was no talking out of it or coming up with extenuating circumstances. I was just wrong. So after I signed that lease and gave her $180, she was the nicest person in the world. So I go to the unit and I'm looking at it and it's like, oh, that's why I bought it, because there were nice period type pieces. Middle of the road, nothing seriously antique, but it was a big boy unit, 10 by 30. So I started pulling stuff out since, the clock had started. The clock had really, I was lucky. They could have kept the unit, resold and kept my money. So clock was kicking and I started emptying out the unit. And like I said, it's really big. So the first week, and this is when I was new, really didn't know that much. I took a week to get like the first 10 feet because I didn't know about sorting, I didn't know any of that stuff. But I was pulling stuff out and selling, putting it on Craigslist, and it was making money. I was doing about maybe $600 a week for like 3 weeks. And then, clock's ticking. I was like, I got one more week to get this stuff out of there. And then there's this like wall of boxes and everything, and I start pulling them out. And then I pull a box, and then like almost like some wind hits me in the face. I'm like, what? Is there a hole in the back of the unit? And I look and I don't see any light. And I pull down the boxes, and there's this space. And it's just like, oh hell, don't tell. At first I was like, I'm about to do the happy dance. It's like, maybe this sucker's about empty. Nah, that wasn't the deal. Pull back boxes, and there's a 1950 Plymouth Deluxe in there. And I'm like, oh shit. It was not like contest grade. It wasn't horrible. It was in sellable condition. It was definitely sellable condition. But it had some issues and stuff, but it had all of the original parts. From the bumper, there was some pitting. The paint looked to be really good. The seats were a little torn, but it was a funky old car. But that wasn't the good part, because in the car was all of this stuff. There was stuff in the trunk, there was stuff in the driver's seat, there was stuff everywhere. And what I didn't know, it was Grandpa and Grandma's car. Because, a lot of stuff was their stuff in the unit, but it was mixed in with the stuff of their offspring. Because I had all of the paperwork and stuff, so I knew exactly who unit it was. Well, I'm sitting here like, how am I going to do this? Because, I get the unit cleaned out, and the only thing in there is the car. And I'm like, shit. And I was like, you know what? AAA. Called up AAA, and I was like, yeah, I need you to come tow my car. I didn't say nothing about it being in the unit. And AAA, highly recommend them, because dude came out there, and I was like, yeah, I need this car towed. And the tow truck driver was so cool. He was like, oh, whoa, okay, hold on. And he gets in there, and tow truck drivers are like really ingenious. They know this stuff. And he's like, okay. And he looked and he found out there was a block in the rear tire and moved it. And he's like, hey, could you help me? And we pushed that bad boy on out. He puts it on the truck, takes it to my house. And I'm sitting there like, okay. So I actually put it in my garage because, in my neighborhood, they were a little funny about stuff like that. That old car out there, somebody would have been like, you need to do something back there. And there was a few people in my neighborhood I just could have bitch slapped on a daily basis. But hey, I don't live there anymore, so it's all good. So a week later, I started going through the car and I just find it's like a time capsule from the early 1900s. And I'm just finding all kind of cool stuff. Like you folks in the picker community, you would have got just a straight woody from everything I pulled out of there, because there was like postcards from the late 1800s. Those suckers were going for like $15 to $100 a piece on eBay. It was just blowing my mind because the postcards were like from Europe. There were, and the ones that were unused with no postal, just those were the ones that went for the most money. And the real jewels was the Gibson stuff, because Grandpa had a fetish for Gibson girls. He had Gibson girl figurines, Gibson girl dolls. These were from Grandpa. It was in the journals. And Gibson girl, like whatever. And there was Charles Dana Gibson. Like, you've seen the Gibson girls. Just Google it. You'll see what I mean. Because it was very, very popular and they were everywhere. And I was just like really cool. And just pulling that stuff. And I was making, like I said, $400 or $500 a week first 3 weeks. And I was happy with that. I was real happy because I got $180 back for the unit, money that I had paid for the unit. But, the stuff was like coming out the car was the money. The stuff that came out of the car was more money than what I sold the car for. Because I sold the car, I just like got rid of it, $6,000. Like I said, it was in good condition. And the guy who bought it wanted it more so for parts than anything else, because they had the original engine, the original hubcaps, tires clearly replaced, but everything else was original. So I'm selling this stuff, and I think I'm doing okay, because this is one of the first times that I'm kind of flirting with the eBay pinks, because I had a week where I did $2,000, which was way above and beyond what I normally did. And then I got the little emails, and that was it. And I was like, yeah, I'm selling stuff. And I didn't hear from him anymore, and nothing happened with PayPal. But I'm thinking that I had sold the best stuff, because there was a bunch of boxes in the trunk, and there was these sketches in there. I just kind of put them aside, because I was an artist in school, and I like it, and I kind of admired them, so I just kind of held on to it for a few months. Then about November, I was sitting there around looking for stuff to list, because I was just like ass out, because stuff was like rolling. And I said, well, let me go check out these boxes. So I go in the boxes, and there are like dozens of Gibson girl sketches, not by Charles Dana Gibson, okay, just in that style, because it was a different artist, and it was this dude, and he was pretty much mimicking, Charles Dana Gibson, but he did a great job, and he had all kinds of stuff. There was sketches, but since you watch the G-verse, you know what's coming. And I'm selling this stuff, and there's dresses and all this stuff, and then these things are going for like, $50. And one just surprised the shit out of me, because it was a lingerie pose, which was very risque back then. That was like, you could literally, something bad could happen to you. The town could gang up, and the torches, and boom, 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 they're coming on your door, and they would like burn your ass for doing shit like that. So I put it up on eBay for shits and giggles, 99 cents. I wake up next morning, that shit was at $700. I was like, what? If you were, to me, back in the day, eBay was so fun, because I used to not, remember when we were kids and used to run home and watch the Wonderful Wild World of, Wonderful World of Disney, because it was like, whoa, it's $4.45. Disney comes on at 5 or 6, depending on where you are, and it's like, and that's how I was, because I was somewhere, and I had a lot of my stuff popping off at 6, and I was like, oh shit. It's 4:45. Getting my ass on because it was like Christmas watching your stuff because it was like so often the last 2 minutes, you'll see those big jumps. And the Gibson girl lingerie thing was going, like I said, it was already $700. It was already $7, and it kind of stalled out and it went like $750, and there was clearly 4 people duking it out. It's like one would put a bid in, the other was like, oh, here's that uppercut. Psh, psh. They were going at it. So I'm Sunday, I'm like at the computer screen like a crackhead. I call up my partner, it's like, yeah, watch it, go ahead. So, it's at $750, and it just kind of stays there, and I can't say I was depressed at all, because it was just like, wow, this is wonderful. I mean, if it goes for $750, it's cool. And the thing is, I had more. A lot more. And I'm sitting there watching it, and it was like, do. Then it got down to the last minute and a half, and this sucker went to $890. Shoot! I was like, uh-oh! And it kept going. Then got to 30 seconds. Then went to 1,000. Then that sucker sold for $1,500 on the dot. No, just straight $1,500. Someone put in nuclear bid, $1,500, and bam, that's where it went. I was blown away. I was totally blown away. So what I did was go ahead and I put because it was about the size. The sketch was maybe do this. Yeah, put 2 sheets of paper together, turn it that way. That's about how big it was. So I went out and I got $1,500. I am like going to be super, super careful with this. So I got some plastic sheets and I put it on both sides. Then I got cardboard and I put that between the cardboard. Oh, $1,500. I'm not sending it like that. Oh, hell no. So I do that. Then I get a box, a big ass box. I put peanuts in the box. Put the sucker, take it to FedEx, and send that bad boy overnight. There's so much profit. That just makes sense to do it that way, right? Because the guy paid instantly. I mean, $1,500. 30 seconds later, PayPal receipt came through. I mean, he was on it. I was like, so I got on it, being that type of dude. So I sent it to him. He gets it. He is thrilled. He is thrilled out of his mind. He's just like, best eBay buyer ever. Wow. I mean, that was the feedback, And I was like, cool. So me being the hustler mindset, if you like that, I have some more. And I know some of you is like, hey, just put it up on eBay. You can get more money. I like, you know what? I had a collector. I had a player. I had someone with some loot. And once again, I was so far in the profit margin on this unit, it didn't matter. So I took pictures of what I had left, and dude was just like, he was in New York. Dude was just like, oh my. So we get his number and we have a phone conversation, and he's like this. He says, I am off this week. I will fly to Atlanta to buy them. I never had that happen before. I talked to people on eBay. I never had anybody that's like, I want to come and get it. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, and he was a cool dude. And he said, look, just to be really honest with you, this, just to come across this type of collection, I mean, if you put it up on eBay, you probably get $1,500, $2,000 per. So he's like, since I got one for $1,500, he's like $1,750 a piece. And understand, I had dozens. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I'm like, I called up my partner. I was like, you are not gonna believe what happened, because she was all geeked up about the $1,500 because we had a killer week. Because that was like the first maybe $7,000-8,000 eBay month. That month, it was just incredible, because at that time it was just like, we only had a few booths in the flea market, and we didn't have the warehouse, so our costs were like nothing. I mean, that was just like pretty much everything else we sold. That was 100% profit at that point, just eBay money, 100% profit. And I was like, well, sit down, and then she's like, what? For those little funky drawings? I was exactly what she said. I was like, yeah. And just before he came down, I went around because I had a friend that worked at the gallery, and I just kind of took them around. And none of these were like authentic Charles Gibson stuff. They were all by this other artist, which actually made it really easy to sell because this person was kind of sort of known. But when dude came into town, met him at the airport, I'm like, hey, you paid me $1,500. I'm gonna pick your ass up at the airport. That's the kind of guy that I am. Meet him at the airport, we talk, we go to lunch, and I take him back to my house. Hey, I'm like, at this point, I don't really think that he's gonna gank me. You know, just fly down from New York, and you know, he was a little Jewish guy. He was like 5'6", and he was an optometrist. And he came from a long line of optometrists. His dad was an optometrist, his mother, and kind of found out dude was loaded. You know, whether they looked at your eyeballs or not, they were still making cash. And we're just sitting there talking and everything. And he gets on the phone and he's calling people and he's like, you would not believe this. This is just awesome. He used the word sublime several times. And we went through this whole thing. And we went to the bank and dude gave me cash. Now, there were dozens. I'm not telling you exactly how many, but there were dozens, and you do the math. And then we get to the car, which at this point I almost forgot about. And I go to the garage. Oh yeah, I need to sell this sucker because my mind is like blown, right? I'm just sitting there like, I mean that whole, and that's really how we accelerated so fast that year. Because one of the things you have to understand about the storage auction business, and one of the reasons that I've taken my time to layer out these stories, is the dust has settled from me leaving the storage auction business and people being mad at me, and statute of limitations have passed. That's all I'm gonna say on that. So I get to the garage and I'm looking at the car, I'm like, yeah, I put the ad on Craigslist. That sucker sells in 3 days. But the real thing was the Gibson girl stuff, because after I sold the car, after I sold the prints, and yes, my ass went somewhere for a month. I'm not gonna lie, I took a month vacation. And I come back and I'm going through some more boxes and I find this box of clothing. And it's all female clothing. And the first thing I pull out is this wedding gown from the 1900s with the big poofy arms, and it's lace, and it's very substantial because it's thick. It's not like flimsy. There's nothing flimsy about this thing out with the Buddhists and everything. I like, once again, shits and giggles. Didn't know what it was. Did their measurements. Understand, people were much smaller back then, so it was little. I put that sucker up on eBay and put, you know, Gibson girl dress, right? You know, because I'm all about the Gibson girl. I wake up the next morning. That sucker's up to $900. I am like, you can't, I'm just like, you can't believe it. That unit that I almost fucked up and lost due to my own apathy was a rock star of all units. Because I put all that stuff up and it was going for like $300 to $1,000. This is probably one of the best units I ever got. And the lion's share of the profit was in a 1950 Plymouth Deluxe. 90% of the stuff that made money was in the car. And I'm talking like, now the car was packed. If you ever seen, like, you know, it's a big car. There was a lot of room in there, but still, the amount of money that we made from the stuff in the car was mind-boggling. It totally changed our storage auction lives. And I was just sitting there like, how the hell did this happen? What? You know, because the thing is, once again, I mentioned statute of limitations, because this stuff was in probate. Well, the unit wasn't supposed to be sold, and there was some stuff going on that I found out later about, and I was just like, I sold it all. I just sold it to this guy for like, you know, $1,000. I didn't tell them how much money I sold it for, and they were pissed. And I was like, I bought it at the storage. At this point, I am like Scooby, like, I don't know anything. Because if I told them the type of money that I made off that stuff, a lawsuit would have been coming. No doubt about it, because they were like, oh, this is worth going after. Next thing you know, my little tender parts, the little tender chestnuts are all up in the fire. And that's one of the best moves ever made by just like, I just sold it out and didn't say anything. Because the thing is, for you storage auction buyers, or even you resellers, or if you're someone that comes across something fantastical like that, you start doing this during this was a decade ago. This is a long time ago. Statute of limitation, all that stuff, that's over. They can't do shit to me. But if I had been yakety yak during that time, I could have lost 6 figures. Easily. Because if they knew what was in that car, and I think they had a clue, they just didn't know the value, because, guy asked, he's like, were there any sketches in there? I was like, huh? That was what I was like, huh, really? What are you talking about? Shh. And if they see this video, tough titty! Oh well, it's over, man. I'm not sorry, but I am ashamed. Deeply. Alright, this is Glendon, and I'll see you on the good side.